Welcome back. Really happy to have you back. I hope your last few days have been good. I wanted to thank you all for all the comments. It's just been really juicy to hear about your where you're at right now so far with this. And I hope you liked your surprise gift of the inquiry journal prompts. I know that's been really helpful for me over the years. If you didn't get it, the link is just below the first video, and that video should be above this video you're watching right now. So, and what about your playwork? Did you do your playwork? If you didn't, it's not too late, and it's worth a few moments of your time. The design of that is to open your energy field and your system so that you can create a frequency of energy that's able to transform the old story of not enough. So make sure you go back and do it. And I mentioned in the last video that it's a sacred honor to witness your journey of creatively transforming what's limiting into what's liberating. It's really my life's work to lead women to their own heart as a doorway to transforming not enough and claiming their rightful abundance and living the rest of their life in a beingness of feeling like a plentifulness and co-creating with Source. That's really your design, so you don't have to worry whether or not you're defective because it's coded in your cells. It's coded in everyone's cells. And it's really about activating it. It's really that simple. And that's what a creative healing process does. And here's why a creating healing process works. The process, when done with intention, in our case, it's the intention of transforming the stories that we've been told that are held in our system of not enough. And that has a particular energy signature, so to speak. So it continues without us wanting it to perpetuate not enough. And we can actually change that signature into the different signature, our birthright of abundance and plenty, by allowing images and ideas on a page or a canvas to go into those unconscious parts of ourselves, bypass the mind, and begin transforming outdated energy signatures, no matter how long we've been holding on to them. It's a more serving signature that we'll be transforming into. And a creative process carves out new brain tracks for this outcome to happen. And I'm not kidding about that. You see, we've been pounding the pavement, so to speak, in the tracks in our brain of not enough. So all of our good work and all of our attempts are on top of that track, or we walk on that same path over and over. And research shows that we are successful in our attempts to change when new brain tracks are able to be made. And that's part of what a creative process does. Isn't that juicy? It creates new pathways. A creative act shows us what we couldn't see before through those new pathways. And the creative process teaches us to listen to the great intelligence, the deep wisdom, and to hear the truth that's important to us in our heart. We hear that wisdom and intelligence and truth in our heart. And a creative process is the doorway or the portal into our heart. It strengthens our connection to the source of life. It builds our muscle of activating our sense of worth and acceptance and value. It opens the channels of abundance and guides us to keep our cup full from the inside out, not from the outside in. You may have noticed that really doesn't work. All that grasping for outside stuff. And pardon me for being blunt here, but you will never be, do, or have what's stirring in your heart and soul unless you change the old programming, the old story. Like, that's the kind of you can take it to the bank truth that is true for all of us. Our story and who we experience ourselves to be is what creates our life, the good and the not so good parts of our life. And so what we're talking about here is consciously and with sacred intention transforming what's limiting to what's liberating. And everybody can do this. And what if it were true that, listen to this, what if it were true that you were not your story? You're not your story, but you are your storyteller. There's a difference there. So the antidote to what holds us back is creating into a new version of ourselves as the one who tells the story rather than the one who's the victim of the way it's been, a victim of the programming. So I just want to tell you briefly of my own experience. So I was born, I had a healer tell me once in my 20s that I was born into a family of, like, the lineage of this family was really fear-based, and not enough. I don't know if she used those words. I actually think she used the words unworthy. And so I have been working for decades to transform that energy. And I'm a slow learner. So it was very slow going, but I will tell you that it sped up and it started transforming at a much faster and more enjoyable rate when I started doing that transformation and alchemy through creative healing processes. But I remember I actually had another healer help me see that when I incarnated, so where I was before, wherever we are before we incarnate, before we come into the physical, what it felt like to me and what I actually was able to feel and see and hear was this warm pool of it felt like love, and it was warm and it was light and it was soothing, and it felt like it just sort of held me like a blanket, and it was just nothing but good. And then whenever I don't know at what point this was, but when separation occurred from that, I immediately felt it. It felt cold, it felt dark, it felt small, it felt like there wasn't enough of not enough light. And then in my life experience of being like on the planet in my body, my experience of that not enough is like there's just not enough time, and there's not enough money, and there's not enough energy, and there's not enough love, and it's just this constant sense of not enough. And so I have had to work really hard on recognizing that, and also giving myself permission that it's not all me, it's part of the programming, so that I could start the process of transforming it. And I will tell you that it works, because now my experience of all of those things is completely different. I no longer, I feel like I live my life from an internal place of a full cup, of a feeling of plenty, of a feeling of that I am the bounty, right? Like it's not something I have to find outside of myself. And that is night and day in terms of my experience of being in my life. So the antidote to what holds us back is creating ourselves into a new and chosen version as the storyteller. This is how we heal. This is how we heal our body, our finances, our business, our relationships. And I want you to have that too. And I know you may remember I said that I was going to tell you about Amy. So listen to what she wrote me after we did some creative healing process together. Lori, I wanted to let you know about my last few days. The online version of the New York Times article came out yesterday. The print version came out today. The podcast was released yesterday. Two independent journalists, like the Independent UK and another journalist place, picked up the New York Times story. By midnight, I'd heard from 2 film producers interested in buying the rights, and 2 more today. A documentarian, my dream of dreams, she says, plus 2 literary agents. Creative Artist Agency contacted me saying several people contacted them about buying the rights, and I was invited to apply for a grant with a local nonprofit. Finally, I have got a call back for a second interview for a job I applied to last week that is really perfect for me. This is still her in her email, not saying that hard work and competence didn't have anything to do with it, but whoa, I've never had a week like this in my life. I believe the focus of my intention brought on by the Creative Healing Workshop has a lot to do with what has transpired. So while her story was one of hard work, overwhelm, leaving herself last on the list, she pushed and worried and worked harder and drained her tank until she couldn't do it anymore. When she transformed that energy into a new story of ease and abundance and good flowing to her, that's when the gates opened. It's a big deal. An NIH study concluded, I love this, that through creativity we find our identity, our true identity, and our reservoir of healing. And I want to tell you a few stats, and I'm just going to read some, and I know that when I listen to these kinds of online classes, that like this one that you're listening to, sometimes the info is really juicy. I can't write it down fast enough. So all of these stats are in the link below. I think it's called the PDF, the stats or whatever. You'll see it, and that way you have access to that, and you can just sort of listen without worrying about getting everything down that I say. So over 500 people responded to a survey conducted by the Intentional Creativity Foundation, and 93% said that they experience creativity as a mindfulness practice. 89% said that they include creativity as part of their spiritual practice. 89% felt a sense of connection with the divine while creating. 86% felt that their creative practice positively impacted not only themselves, but the people closest to them, around them. 92% feel that creativity influences their self-worth. Maybe you've heard that concept that our self-worth greatly affects our net worth. 90% said they experienced compassion, more compassion for themselves and others through practicing creativity. 87% considered themselves more self-expressed as compared to before they were creating. Self-expression is a big deal for us women. 90% said that they have experienced a shift in their default thinking into a deeper truth, a sort of aha. 88% experienced a shift in their personal abundance story through creating with intention. 89% bring insights back into their life that they discovered while engaging with the creative process. 85% said that they experienced an expanded sense of self. That's that system opening up because the stories are leaving, the old stories. 79% noticed an ease of physical symptoms while creating. 93% experienced creating as a relief that benefits their overall well-being, like a stress relief. 90% have experienced a shift in recurring emotional pain through creative process. And 90% said that creativity helped them maintain a healthier outlook on life, allowing them to receive more abundance. That is a lot of juice right there. So you want to commit to finding space in your life to create as a priority, not like as a hobby, not as a pastime. This isn't a folly. This is creating as personal medicine, and it's the real deal. So let's talk about crafting your new story now, because that's what our focus is on in this video class. Without your permission and without you knowing it, a story has been being told through you and about you. It's a faulty programming of sorts, and the problem is that this story is the one running your life, and unless someone has already told you about it, you might not even know it's happening. If someone has told you about it and you know it's happening, even better, but it's hard even to get out of the programming. We think the programming is us, and this is the story of not enough. There's not enough resources, not enough time, not enough money. You're not enough. I'm not enough. We've all got to do extra hard work to prove that we're enough. And we kind of get in trouble here because it's a recipe for failure. We do more and we push harder only to still come up short, which confirms this nagging underlying sense that we're not enough and that there isn't enough for us. So then we try it from another angle and continue gathering evidence of how not enough we are. And just around and round it goes. It's like the classic catch-22, isn't it? And these stories are taking up so much space in our system that our imagination has no space to create something new. And this is how things of our past inform our future. And no one wants to live their future based on the hardest parts of their past, right? But this is exactly what ends up happening. We make all of our decisions based on the worst thing that's ever happened to us, which it makes our future the same way. And this is just how the brain works, right? It automatically reaches into those old story places and begins to pull that information out. And this isn't how we create joy and reach our dreams from a place of pain and unworthiness. It just so happens that we so often recreate the same old scenarios, and it's because that's how energy works. So our future is always informed by our past, and we just keep bumping up against that. We keep tripping into the things that aren't anywhere near what our soul longs for. And who we are in our lives is based in what we think and believe based on our past experience of ourselves, of others, and our default setting until we change it. And most of this is unconscious. A small portion is conscious. And if we don't work with our brain and our heart in tandem with intention, they'll just continue to randomly reference the worst experience of our past to create decisions about our future. It's a recipe for insanity. So, and it's also causes a lot of fear, and it doesn't allow us to have possibility. And we think we have this illusion that we're keeping ourselves safe by doing it that way. There's always a little voice in our mind that says, if you do that, this is going to happen because of the past programming. It tries to keep you safe, but that safety is really a myth, and it's the thing that's barring us from our soul's joy, from our purpose, and from a thriving life. So what if we could choose in a way that was liberating? What if we could choose from a different place in our system, from a transformed place, from good stories, the ones that we can trust, and the ones that we can love, and the ones that we want to keep and continue and to grow, and that are held in, these are held in the sacred work of our woven system. And I want you to know that good stories are powerful enough to transform bad stories into something useful. It's like compost, but this takes making a decision. And it's a really good start to begin by saying, I'm going to make use of all of my tragedy and put it to work on my behalf. And just like anything, good stories need room to grow. So you give them air and light and love, and they, like magic, will put your bad stories into useful context. Your life is a living witness to this, and women are doing this every day, and you can too. There's another quote I really like by Frida Kahlo, and she says, "Don't build a wall around your suffering, or it may devour you from the inside." So when you can imagine that it's possible for you to live from a sense of wholeness, a plenty fullness, from a full cup, a new creative power comes to guide you forward, to guide you out of your old stories. If you're living from the past, from memory, from lack, from fear, from being hurt again, then the invitation I'm offering you is to step out of that chamber where nothing fresh can grow and come over here into a new place where your own soul sings the most abundant and valuable song in the world, which is your song. The reweaving of the stories is at hand in our culture now. Then the only way out of these shackles, out of the cage where nothing fresh grows, is to recognize three things. The first is the story of not enough is not your story. It seems like it is, but it was here long before you got here. You just happened to become a part of the programming when you entered into your human experience. And part of our soul growth is our willingness to transcend this, right? Why? Because it's not the truth. That's the second thing, too. It appears as if it's the truth, but the truth with a capital T is in your heart, awaiting your attention. And three, we are designed to create, and a creative process opens the door of the truth in your heart. And this is your heart and your soul truth. It's a truth you can trust, not the kind of trust me shenanigans your mind likes to pull. Because when we inquire in our heart, our creative life force connects us by way of our intuition, and that helps us to listen and learn and hear the wisdom and the messages of wholeness and abundance. And your creative life force, she's the keeper of your new stories. She's the keeper of new chapters and new endings and new sacred endings. And she understands how to help us exchange the tension of not enough for the ease of enough and plenty. It's anxiety producing and stressful to live from the programming of not enough. Have you ever considered that consciously? I know when I looked at this, and when I ask women to gently notice the tension that living from not enough causes in their mind and their body and their life, it's kind of staggering. And it makes you want to do the work to shift it, right? Ease is what we crave, and your connection to your creative life force will assist you in authoring the rest of your story according to your heart and your soul, which is the story you came in with, which can always be trusted. Always be trusted. They're so trustworthy, and they lead us to good outcomes. Because story lives in image inside of us, in our memory and in our body and in our system, we can alter how they live in us via image. That's the whole magic of the creative aspect. Once they are witnessed and honored, they can be transformed. But this has to happen like in the layers, the physical, the spiritual, and the energetic field layers. And this is where the creative process comes in, because it can access all of those layers at the same time. So to transform the old story into the new, it happens like on a page or a canvas. That's the form that holds that holds your story in the physical for the alchemical process to happen, and then that transfers into your body. It's like planting a seed in the ground. So the ground would be like the canvas, with our seed as the intention, and then you add light, which is like the color or the paint, and regular watering, that's our engagement of the creative process, and new life sprouts, and then we get to enjoy the harvest or the bounty when it's ready. And this happens every time if you keep watering. So let's talk about you shifting your story. Below this video is a play sheet that will have you become clear about the not enoughs that may be rumbling around in your system, in your life, in your mind. In case you get a little nervous about looking at this, just know that you're just becoming aware of something. And when we become aware of something in our awareness, it means it's ready to transform. So for example, let's just say one of your chats is that you're not as good as the next woman, and what do you have to say that's any different than anyone else? And you know, why bother? It never works out anyway. Those would be just the rumblings of a not enough story, and you can just notice those. Let's say you want to make a little more money, and that's like your desire, but then all this other stuff comes up. So notice what does come up, because if you're aware of it, it's ready to be transformed. And you're just taking notes right now without judgment. You're just noticing what's there, so that you can excavate it out, so to speak, with the intention of repurposing this energy, which is what we're going to do. And then consider the outcome that you would prefer to create. And usually that, more often than not, has to do, it's like the opposite of what you've been living. So if this is what you have, but this is what you want, it's usually the opposite. So and sometimes you just know what you want, and then you have to kind of figure out what's been holding you back. But just look for the opposite of what keeps rumbling, and it may be a story long held, it may just be something you've been noticing of late. But if you really, really are looking to transcend a limitation because you want the liberation for the outcome, then that would be like the counterbalance of each other. So, and just know that, you know, there are people in this world who want to hear what your experience is, and that what you have to say and what your expressions are right and good and valuable. And when you do that, it actually nourishes and fuels you, right? Those are some of the things that you can tell yourself. And if you decide you want to make more money, then that's what you're going to put on the outcome side of your paper. And you're just playing with this. You might find that you're going back and forth, and that's normal. I'm just going to ask you to be intentional here about honoring everything that shows itself as part of like the mud from which you will blossom a new outcome. It's kind of like a lotus flower. I love this analogy, right? So a lotus flower blossoms itself out of this dark, dank mud, and the light lifts it up out of that dankness, right, and pulls it into this gorgeous, beautiful blossom and bounty. And that's like our life, right? We have all this ickiness that just hasn't worked, and stuff we've tried, and things that have held us back, and this pile of not enough and all that. Well, that's our mud, and it is from that we grow up out of. We rise up out of that through and a creative process actually is sort of like the light that pulls us up out of that, and then that is what that is what helps us blossom and access our bounty. And every human being is designed for this, and you just want to know that about yourself, and maybe that's something that you put on your outcome, that you want to learn that about yourself. And so then whatever it is that's on your outcome side, you want to hang out with that for a day or two. You want to gather what else might want to be included and make little notes, and ask yourself what it looks like, right? You want to add detail and include all your senses, like what do you see, and what do you taste, and what do you hear, and what do you smell, and what does it feel like? Those are the kinds of detail that act as a bit of like a rocket fuel that moves you into the energy of your intention faster, and it transcends the old energy and the new process because it's basically a different vibration. So just make notes about all this on your play sheet. And don't worry if you feel like you're only scratching the surface and you have more layers, but you're not really sure how to get to them, or you're not sure how to take it to the canvas, so to speak. I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm also going to be extending an invitation to you to become a part of a sacred circle of women that will be doing just that together in a kind of community that will accelerate your own transformation. And I'll give you more information on that in the next class. But for now, explore and see what you find about not enough and about how you'd like to be, who you'd like to be as a woman that's full and whole. And again, like last time, please share what you're choosing to shift. Whatever details you want to share in the comments below, and if you have a question or maybe you get a little stuck, let us know, and we'll be responding and commenting, and we'll help support you move through something that might be sticky. And be sure and include what it would mean for you to create into this new outcome. This is really the first step in crafting a new story, is what does this mean to you? And then in our next and final video class, we'll be talking about how to plant this seed and foster its growth from the mud to the bloom, right? From the mud to the bounty. And we'll also talk about how to upgrade your operating system to be able to hold this new vision of yours. And I'm calling your operating system your mind and your body and your spirit as being in sync. Because when something isn't working, it's because our system is out of alignment or it's disordered, like we talked about in the last video. And so we're going to bring all those into an ordered alignment. So have fun with this. Give yourself some extra compassion and acceptance and support. And remember that an old story is not your truth. Even if it seems like it is, because it's familiar, it is not your truth. And also, I'd love for you to share this video with three or more people who you feel like this would be really valuable for, and make sure you've liked our page. And I'll see you next time.